Autism, it is a neurological disorder and it's caused by abnormal development in the brain. What is important is to treat everyone like an individual and learning not to generalize autism. Don't think that there is a different, better child hiding behind the autism. This is your child. Love the child in front of you. Encourage his strengths, celebrate her success, and improve their weaknesses the way you would do with any child. You may have to work harder on some of this, but that's the goal. Welcome to this special episode of Health is Wealth. Health is Wealth has been crossing its third week tonight, and I really want to welcome all of you for this beautiful thing supported by Mana TV. Tonight we are going to discuss a lot of different things about autism. We're going to learn about science and symptoms. So let's welcome Dr. Naveen Mehrotra in our show. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's great to be here again, just like every other week, and talking about a very special topic that I think our community really needs to be educated about.
Yes, that is absolutely true, and that is why we have two special guests with us tonight. And will you please introduce them to our viewers?
Sure, we are extremely fortunate and grateful to have Radha right next to me. Radha has a 12-year-old son with autism, and next to her we have Pallav. Pallav is a father of a 5-year-old who has autism, and we'll be talking about their experiences as well, and how the community can be educated about what a family has to go through when they have a child with autism.
The first thing I would like to ask you, and I think that everybody will have the same question like me, that how you diagnose these symptoms to a child.
So as part of our general checkups for every single child, we go through a developmental checklist, starting at the time of birth to 1 month to 2 months to 4 months, like that. And then we ask for certain development milestones.
Okay.
So if the child is not reaching those milestones, then that raises a red flag for us that there may be something wrong with the child. Now, a couple of the telltale signs, the child is not making eye contact, the child is not speaking, the child's mannerisms may not be what they should be that another child would have. So when we think of those, that sort of a developmental delay, then that pediatrician will start to do a screen, which also is mandated to all kids. So at 18 months of age, we do a screening test called the MCHAT, which is the Modified Child Health Autism Test. And we ask the parents to answer those questions. And if the child does not fit into the right category for that, that is a sign that this child may have autism. And at that point, then we'll send them for confirmatory testing. And that could be something like the ADOS or some other test that the neurologist might do or a developmental specialist might do. And based on that is what the diagnosis then is made that the child may have autism. And then at that point, we start to intervene as to what now the family needs to make sure that the child reaches their maximum potential.
So Radha, it's a very sensitive moment, I know, for both of you to talk about it, but I would really ask you this thing, that when you both first heard that your child has been diagnosed with this, so what was your thoughts? You both can take part one by one.
Sure, I will go first.
Yes, please.
So, of course, it's very overwhelming to hear that you have this diagnosis. The first thought which came into our mind, me and my wife, is why it happened to us, right? Did we do anything wrong? Then we sort of go onto the internet to see what can cause this. There are theories, but there is no confirmed theory. So that was the first thought, right? Did we do something wrong? like my wife says, did she eat something wrong during the pregnancy? So it's very overwhelming, right? And yeah.
How about Radha?
Definitely, as the mom, yeah, you put yourself through a lot of guilt, and I did feel, now what, I felt I had already some abstract knowledge of autism, and then I knew that there was no cure, and I said, okay, now it's not happening to other people anymore, it's us, and of course I already kind of knew. My son was not making eye contact, he was not speaking, he still doesn't. And at first I thought he had a hearing problem because we would talk to him and he wouldn't even look at us, So we really kind of went through a lot of emotions. And I think also the day-to-day is so chaotic with autism when kids are young that we didn't really have a chance to process our emotions. It was just lots and lots of screaming and no time to think what is happening, and every day the rituals keep you moving, so you don't get to step back much and say, what could this be? So when finally we got the diagnosis, it was very shocking. And then one day I was sitting in the car waiting to pick up my older child, and that was when I finally had a big cry, and I said, okay, I finally have a minute to say, I have an autistic child, we are now an autism family. And that was that moment when it really kind of hit me that this is forever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Naveen,
Yeah.
as you are doing like the diagnose and everything, so how you are educating the parents from that day, because it's really something that it's as Pallav said, that it's totally overwhelming to know about the child, and then it's hard for them to grasp it. So how
Well,
you
one of the
manage?
biggest issues in our community is that we don't want to have anything wrong with our child, right? So for us, we have that our child should be the best, the top of the class. And when you tell them that your child is not developing properly, that there may be something wrong, the first thing I get is resistance, right? They don't want to accept it. Oh, no, everything is going to be okay, everything is going to be okay. And they're so scared about what they may have to face, right? Nobody wants to accept that. And I think as a community on the whole, we have to listen to it, and we have to accept whatever is given to us, and to make sure that we do the best for our child, right? So the first thing is, if the physician, or if you think there's something wrong, you have to make sure that you accept that. And you say, okay, well, let me act on it instead of denying it. So once you accept, then can you move forward? And I think Radha and Pallav have both done amazing in trying to move forward, because you have to literally take the bull by the horns, right?
Yeah.
So if the child is not speaking right, if the child is not speaking, you have to make sure the first thing is that, is the hearing right? And rightfully what Radha said is she thought there was something wrong. So as part of any sort of speech delay, the first thing is that the hearing has to be checked. So every pediatrician should be checking the milestones. So I've had patients come and tell me, oh, I don't think the pediatrician asked me this or asked you that. They should be asking you that, right? You as a parent, it is your responsibility as much as the pediatricians, right? To make sure that the right thing is being done for the child. And that is where we have to be open as a community to embrace every single child the way they are, right? And I think Radha and Pallav have done an amazing job with that. So I'm sure they're, they had initial, I guess, resistance, right? Maybe from friends or community. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Right. I mean, I think when Dr. Malhotra said about the resistance, I thought he's sort of describing me 2 years checkup for my daughter, right? And she was delayed in all the milestones, right? Then there's a help you can. Before 3 years, you can go to early intervention, which is a great program. But we sort of fought it back. We did not call the helpline to get my daughter scheduled for checkup, because we thought, you know what, it's okay, give her 4 months, 5 months more time, she'll catch up, right? But then at the 3 years checkup, when we went, and she was even more delayed, right? That's when Dr. Malhotra said that now this is not the time to wait. You have to go to neurologist for a proper assessment and get help, right? And from that point in time to this point in time, when we started to act on it, I see a lot of difference in my daughter. So, you know, my appeal to everybody is do not wait. There's so much help available, right? If you know your child best, and you know it that something is not right. And it's very easy to see when normal development is not happening. Right? Nowadays you have internet, you have friends, you see other kids. Don't live in denial. There's a lot of help, and get that help. Right?
For sure.
I really don't know what to say, because I believe that this is too much to talk about it from the parent side. And it's because I have seen few and tried to share the parents' thinking or how they're feeling for the child. But this situation right now, for me, it's too much overwhelming. And seriously, and Naveen, I think that you should take it forward, seriously, because
No.
yeah.
Well, I think our main goal, and I'm really thankful for Radha and Pallav to be here to share their stories, is that there is a lot of help available, right? And we have to take the bull by the horns and say, okay, there is something wrong here, let me act on it. There's a program called Early Intervention that every state has, right? So the one that Pallav is talking about, you call that number, it's a state helpline. They'll go ahead and put your child into the proper services that are needed for the treatment of your child. But you as the parent have to take that step. I remember many stories where, you know, we see lots and lots of kids where I think there's something wrong. I'll tell the parent again and again and again, you need to go, you need to go, you need to go. But then they'll have all of their friends and community members, their aunts and uncles, people calling in from India, do this, do that puja, go ahead and, you know, I've heard like the craziest anecdotes to try to get their kids normal. You will not believe, and I'm sure Radha has had the same experiences, right? I think you've told me about a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, we've had people say to us, I don't know why, but the magic number was always age 6. By age 6, he will be fine. He will be talking. You know, every child has something, you know, even our normal children take time to develop. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't think of my child as abnormal. But they will always make you feel that you are allowing your child to be labeled, and that in America people love labels. Why are you allowing your child to have this diagnosis that will follow him for the rest of his life? But you know what? It is going to follow him for the rest of his life. And as we accepted it, we began to see that there is a whole world out there of people for whom this is perfectly normal. And once you meet them, you start to feel, okay, we are not the only people. But yes, for sure, in our community, I think there's a lot that we can learn. We need to not say to people, you know, I know it's coming from a good place, but we need to not say to people, take them to this temple, take them, you know, feed them this, go to this Babaji, because, you know, it is basically saying that, and there have been people who have said to us that, oh, it's because of your child's karma. You know, this is not something to talk lightly about. We love our children just as much as other people love theirs. To us, this is our normal. So it is a great pleasure actually to watch our child, you know, learn things maybe in his own way differently, but it's the pride is there, you know. Every day that he works harder than other kids to learn something, I feel that pride. I feel like, good for you, go and kick some butt, you know, because he works harder than so many other kids to even just put his pants on, you know. So it makes me feel proud. And I think that we don't want to be, any of us, we don't want to be seen as objects of pity. We don't want our children to be seen as charity projects. We want them to be treated as part of the community just like everyone else. And for that to happen, we need people to get used to them, normalize it, invite us over. Our kids are not that different.
Yeah.
They may make different noises, they may act a little different, but we are still part of everyone. We are not hiding. We're not ashamed. We are happy to be out there just like everyone else.
Right. I mean, I'm sure, Pallav, have you noticed any changes in the social aspects?
Yeah, that is
what
right? What I
So
was
that is,
really going to ask Pallav. That Pallav, what type of challenges you have faced when you like when you took her outside with you, or like Dr. Mehrotra is saying?
Right. So with autism, it's a spectrum, right? So every child has different and unique challenges, right? Luckily for my daughter, there is no behavior challenges as much, right? But she has other challenges.
Okay.
So whenever sometimes as Radha described, few things happens, right? If we are at birthday party, the other parent come to us and say, will she eat cake? Will she have chips? Sometimes it feels like you can ask her. She's not going to harm you, or she's not going to do anything wrong to you. I'm not the translator. She can say yes or no, right? Just because she has some difficulties or she has a diagnosis, that doesn't mean that you have to make her feel special in every single way, right? So those are some challenges, but with the support, with other parents' feedback, we start sort of tackling those issues as well.
What are the symptoms that we can talk about to our viewers, Naveen?
So, we definitely talked about the diagnosis piece, where there are developmental milestones that are delayed. So the child may not speak, may not interact in newer environments. He or she may not be able to learn at the same pace, but he will, get there. We have to figure out where that child falls on the spectrum.
Okay.
A lot of parents will say, can you tell me, when can I have him normal? No, there's nothing like that. You have a spectrum. Some can be mild, some can be medium, some can be severe, and there's no way to exactly quantify that. So based on the deficiencies, we will target the therapies. So the child may need occupational therapy, the child may need speech therapy, the child may need behavior therapy, counseling, he may need medications as well, depending on what the issues are with the child. So you cannot make a blanket statement, okay, you have high blood pressure, take this blood pressure medicine and on. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the entire child, the whole child, and then move forward with the appropriate treatment. It requires a team approach, and there is a lot of things that will go into the medical and the treatment aspect, plus how to incorporate the social environment as well. So how does the school impact? How is the educational program going to be? So those things have to come into a big, large picture as one whole frame.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the signs of autism. So I would like to show those signs to our viewers so they can have a quick idea that what we are talking about regarding what Dr. Mehrotra is talking about, as well as our parents are talking about. So mostly these signs are there. So Naveen, can you just explain a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so the signs that you should really be watching out for is definitely speech issues, eye contact. You should be looking at repetitive behaviors. There may be arm flapping, there may be hand flapping, there may be other types of repetitive behaviors. How the child is in terms of interaction with his or her environment. How is he with food? How is he with his behavior? So those are some of the signs that we would be looking for. Is he able to do some of the abstract things that we would want? Okay. I think if the viewers are aware of some of those signs, they should definitely bring that to medical attention as quickly as possible.
I have heard from a lot of parents whose kids have been diagnosed before that there are some special meal plan that they follow. Is that so? Can you explain that?
So there are lots. So when you start researching the internet, right, Dr. Google, you'll get millions of things, and I'm sure every parent does that, and rightfully so, right? You're trying to provide the best of treatment. You're trying to find what is the best way to get your child to the level that you want them to. So there are these gluten-free, casein-free diets. There are other types of diets that somebody might have posted about and said this will work or that will work. And I'm sure Radha and Pallav can talk about what they might have tried as well.
Yes, please,
but
why
I
not?
think in terms of scientific literature, there's not a whole lot of good evidence that if you do this, that there will be a cure. Okay, so I'm sure you can talk about your experiences in terms of food and diet. What have you guys
Yes,
tried?
please.
So I think as far as food and diet is concerned, we didn't try anything different, right? We sort of got educated that the only sort of approved therapy for the autism is ABA. So once we came to know that, we started doing that, and before we started ABA, and if I see what was my daughter's level, and now that with a year or year and a half of that therapy, I see a lot of difference. So
Okay.
that is something you can try. But as in food and diet wise, we didn't try anything, and as doctor said, there is no scientific evidence to show that this can cure.
I knew a child around 2003. That time he was 5 years old. They live in Brooklyn. And that time it was a severe syndrome. If he starts crying, he will never stop. And that was a very close friend of mine. But suddenly, it was totally changed for the parents when he was in 5th grade. How is that possible? It was a very positive mode. Do you think that everything is for therapy? Everything is with the food and everything, or no? The food doesn't have anything at all. It is just the therapy.
Well, there are a lot of different theories, as Pallav said, right? So something may work. It may be by chance, coincident. And a lot of times, people will give me stories that, oh, I did this and this happened, but you don't really know the full entire treatment that was going on behind the scenes, right? So parents may not share that, and they'll just put, oh, I did this and everything is fine now, you should do that. And then you read that and then you go and follow that. But it's not the case. You don't know the entire story, who's posting it and what they're doing. So I don't know, have you had experience with different diets, Radha?
Well, our long story. My son was actually hospitalized for not being able to eat. Part of the issue is that for him textures are very difficult, and part of his sensory problem is that eating is kind of disgusting to him, and it used to be worse. So he had a feeding tube for many years, and what I found was not any of the special diets worked. It was just that because the tube took away the anxiety of eating, he slowly began to eat. So really it was nothing more than just leaving him alone and introducing new foods slowly and taking away the pressure that if you don't eat, you're going to be starving. So when he knew that I'm not starving, then he slowly began to eat and overcome this disgust and fear. So, Naveen knows the whole story about everything he's been through. But even related to that, there was some concern that if we had a feeding tube for him, it would further delay his speech. But what we found was that once you accept, once you say, okay, there is no speech, it kind of calms you down and says, okay, but what other solution is there? And now he works very, very well with an app on his iPad for speech, and he says so many things on it. So that's his speech. And we no longer say, oh, he doesn't talk. We don't even feel that way anymore. So when you face it, like Naveen said, if you just take the bull by the horns and you don't fear what's happening, then so many possibilities are already out there, and you will never learn about them if we keep saying, but I really want him to talk. You know, it's just not really helpful. So that's one thing that we've learned, is that let's see what else is out there. And once we did that, he understands the technology so much better than we do, my son, and he enjoys it so much. He can tell us jokes, and other kids can come and talk to him using the app, and it's helped him to make friends as well. So it really has expanded our world a lot to just be very practical and say, okay, you know, if there is no 100% cure, there is still so much out there that other people have already explored and we can try, you know.
Right. And you'll be surprised, Ragini, that the amount of alternative or complementary or whatever holistic different types of therapies people have tried, and they'll pay anything because they are so desperate.
I heard about that
right?
as well.
So, I mean, even in our area here, our community is huge on that. How much money do they give to the Babajis? How much money do they give for this Ayurvedic treatment or some Dan therapy or something like that? They'll come in and ask me, should I pay this much, this much? I said, well, if you feel you want to go ahead and do it, as long as it's not harming the child, I'll allow you to do it. Because you should not feel that I didn't try everything for my child, but really look at it and see if there is going to be a benefit. Because there's nothing that's been proven scientifically except the ABA therapy. That is the first prescription treatment that any child gets who has autism. So that is something we have to make sure that you keep your expectations. You'll have a change in expectations, right? And based on your expectations is where you will rejoice in what you accomplish. And that is what I think Radha is really trying to get into, because now there is tons of new stuff out there. There's a lot of technology out there. So, you know, it's opened up the world and it's really done wonders.
That is so true. But being a South Asian parents, we all have this kind of thinking in our head that our son needs to do this, do that, being in like Ivy League school, colleges and everything. So what is your thinking about those matters?
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. Like, we all have a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
You know, we think about college. Some of the friends who don't know ask us that, have you started 529 plan to fund for the college, you know, and they are being, they don't know, right?
I understand.
So it's difficult, but as Dr. Malhotra said, that keep your expectation realistic, and nothing is impossible, right? I mean, there have been cases in which autistic person has even gone to take the PhD degree as well, right? So keep it realistic, keep short-term goals, right? Whatever you have to achieve for next year, and keep working towards that, right? Think, we always, I mean, Dr. Malhotra once told me that you have to be always positive, and don't think about diagnosis, don't think about what class your child is going to go to, what others will say, oh, she's in the self-contained or she's in the integrated. Think what is best for your daughter. What is going to best help her, do that. Don't think about what others will think.
Yeah.
So I always keep that in mind and keep working.
And it is a lot of stress. I mean, why should the community add so much stress to parents that are already dealing with so much stress at home?
Yeah.
Why do we have to judge everybody, right? It just makes absolutely no sense.
Totally. So what do you think that our community should come up with?
They have to embrace, instead of all these issues that you're talking about, right? Why should you ask a child, is it okay to, yes, maybe they have good intentions, can you have cake or not? Or just say, okay, well, hey, you know, Meg, how about having some cake, you know? Just talk to them normally, and then dad can intervene and say, oh my god, no, she has allergies to this, don't eat this. Right. But let him be a regular or a normal, you know, behavior.
Yeah.
Why alienate him, right?
Yeah.
So that is what we have to say. And if there is an issue, you know, don't go around giving 50,000 ideas, or do this, do that, because you didn't do this, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, right? It doesn't work like that. You have an issue at hand, deal with it, and move forward with it.
Is it genetic by any chance?
Well, that is a $1 million question, right? There's a lot of research going on. Everybody wants to know what causes autism.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. There are many different types of autisms that are out there. There's some that have been related to a genetic issue. There's some people that say it's an environmental issue. Some people say, it could be a combination of things. We just don't know. We hope that in the next few years we'll get an answer, but I'm not sure if that'll happen.
Absolutely.
Right.
So being positive like Dr. Naveen Mehrotra and being positive like our two parents right here with us, I would like to share few things that this doctor do every year. I mean, very recently we just joined him for Dance for a Cause, as well as he does every year a gala just to fundraise for autism. Let's have a quick look what SKN does. And so when you really thought about SKN, Naveen?
Well, that's another whole chapter.
No, please. I would like to talk about it a little bit before we start playing, please.
So SKN Foundation is a non-profit organization that was started in 2010. 2008 is when I had some issues that came up in my family. I lost my wife to cancer. And in her memory, we started the SKN Foundation. And we said our work in the community is to support our community on several different fronts, and one of them was for families with special needs.
Okay.
So our organization has created a support network called SCOPE, which is Special Needs Community Outreach Program for Empowerment. We've connected special needs families, that they can connect with each other, they can be educated with each other, they can have social events with each other. And recently we've just launched what's called a respite care program, where once a month we will host the family. They can leave their child with us and we will take care of them, and for a few hours let the parents actually take a break. Do you know it's a 24/7, 365-day a year job for the parents, taking care of the kids, because just where they're going to, even to leave the child with a babysitter is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Because the babysitter, if they don't know how to handle the child, they cannot leave the child, right?
If you need a volunteer, I'm always there.
Well, you have to go through a lot of training, Ragini. It is
Please
not
do.
that.
Please do. No, please
So
do.
we're
I'm accepting that. Please
so
do.
we are taking a group of volunteers. We're training them
Please.
how to deal with them,
Yeah.
and we have wonderful families. I mean, they're so invested in the cause because they know what it's like to go through it, and they're there anytime, every time to have that support for each other.
Yeah.
I mean, Radha has gone out and started to write a blog, Autism
Wow.
Dunya, which is great, talking about her experiences, right? To educate our community what it's like at every step of the way.
Yeah.
Her husband has been great in terms of doing these science experiments with the kids. We have so many community members coming together, and we try to meet at least once a month, if not every other month. We go ahead and do workshops for them. And if there's any viewers that are listening who want to join the group, it's a total free service for everybody. They can go to the SKN Foundation website and send us a message, and we'll definitely enroll them into the group. And they can connect with other families. And you will be surprised, I mean, with the feedback that we've gotten from some of the families. and I think Pallav can share some of those comments, and
Please do.
Radha can as
Please
well,
do.
about the families that have been part of the group. How it has benefited them.
Right. So, as Doctor mentioned that Radha has a blog, right? So, I precisely remember the day on which my daughter was diagnosed. Dr. Naveen told me to reach out to Radha, and I had no contact number. I just went to Radha's blog and said that, this is my number. Can you call me? And it was so nice for her to give me a call, take enough time to talk to me. Then I joined a group, Scope group. Every parent there felt they were so helpful in every aspect. Where to find a good swimming classes, where is good speech therapy, what is ABA, right? When you just got diagnosis, you don't know about diagnosis, you don't know anything about how ABA runs. There was few parents who were ready to, even share the total program of a child, that how does ABA look like, and from then on, even how to get best services from school, how to have the education plan in place for your daughter. So it has been an amazing experience, and help is one thing, and the second thing is you feel that you are not alone. There are people like you, and they are doing so many stuff, and they are seeing good progress in their child.
Yeah.
So you can follow that path, right? So those are the things what Scope was really, really helpful, and it's free, right? So if you know your child needs help, this is the place you can reach out, right? Not just autism, for any special need.
Rick, sorry, you
No,
want to ask something?
I was just going to ask Radha, like how.
For sure. I mean, I don't want to repeat what Pallav has said, but I think that one of the things that is easy to lose sight of when we are doing this work is how to have fun. We enjoy our kids, but I'm getting older, my husband is too. It's exhausting, and it's harder as they get older, they get stronger. Our child is more physical. And so Scope has given us an outlet to make friends, to meet people who are, in the same pickle as us, to talk to people in a way that normalizes what we are dealing with, so that we're not always the different ones. And so, it's a real stress relief for us, and it gives us friendships that feel safe. We're not always the people who somehow something bad happened to us. It is very, very important to have that. Something that I think a lot of mainstream families can take for granted. We can't. We value it much more highly. We enjoy very much walking into that space. We enjoy keeping in touch with people. We have a WhatsApp group that's very active, and we chat every day, and we have a good time, basically, which helps us out a lot. It's should not only be about duty and struggle and what are my obligations today. Life is not meant only for that. So
I remember one instance that Radha was talking about is how to go to a restaurant, right? We take it for granted. Oh, it's Friday night, let's all go out to the pizza place. Or let's go out here, let's go to this fancy restaurant. How does a family who has a child with autism, how do they plan that? How often can they go, right? I mean,
it's not very fun in the beginning, that's true.
And then how you got used to
Well,
it?
I mean, for a lot of things, my child has pretty severe behavioral challenges. For a lot of things,
I would like to interrupt you because I would like to know his name.
his name is Aditya.
Aditya.
So he has pretty severe challenges. And one thing we have done unapologetically is we have involved his home therapist in all our outings. They have helped us learn how to take him out. So SKN also runs cultural classes, spiritual classes called Sanatan Vidyalay. We have enrolled Aditya in those classes, and our therapist comes to the class and works with us. So we just drag them into everything, and we use their help to set up programs like how do we get out the door without having to actually, because as he's getting older, we shouldn't have to be the ones to pick him up, right? He should walk to the car. He should understand the expectation. He should learn how to find a way to have a good time wherever we go. And as they get older, that becomes more and more important because they're not small anymore, they're not cute anymore. I mean, you know what I mean. So we have to set higher expectations as they get older. And you should see him in the Sanatan Vidyalaya class. He enjoys it so much because of this help that we have been able to give him to fit in, you know. I won't say it's not challenging, but it is definitely very, very rewarding. So that has been a big factor, is don't be afraid to involve your therapist in your outings. Has been a huge thing for me. I actually got the idea from watching a PBS show where a Jewish family used the help of their therapist to prepare their son for his bar mitzvah. And I thought, hey, why not me? Why not we do this, you know? So I asked Naveen, is this something we could do? And he was very, very positive about it. And that was what got us started. So, you know, that's
I remember seeing a video where he was actually starting to do arti and everything, right? And and doing you know, the ganti and all at the. So it's so, you know, you have to, once again, I'll keep on saying the same thing, right? Take the situation at hand and make sure you move forward with it, right? So that is the only way to do it. And now there are other challenges now that as Aditya is getting older, that Radha has been, you know, really contemplating how to handle it, is because what happens as they get older? Who's going to take care of him? How are they going to take care of him, right?
So one of the things that I've been really exploring a lot in my writing is, what can we really ask of our community as our children get older? We cannot carry this ourselves forever. And if you think about it, this burden or responsibility is going to get passed on to our other child. But that other child is going to need support from the community. So things like legal help. Is my brother being looked after properly in whatever home he's living in? Do I need to explore better financial options? Things like that. And our community can really help if they want to. So one of the things is that, you know, as a community, I feel like we tend to focus very much on success stories, but let us also use our resources to help families. One of the things I would really like us to think about is, how do we talk about special needs? One of the issues I often hear is, oh, a lot of parents get a diagnosis for their child so that their child will get extra time for testing. Please don't say those things, because for many of our children, these services at school are a lifeline. It can determine whether they succeed or fail. So my older child has more mild special needs and does need some of those services. And if they hear our community talking like this, it's very discouraging for them. It will make them feel like a failure, you know? So, and
so one thing, I'm just going to interrupt you. A lot of the people may not know that what Radha is talking about is that there are special accommodations that can be made at the school to accommodate the needs of your child. So if your child is not able to, you know, perform well on tests, you can ask for extended time for the test based on what the needs of the child are. But the families have to advocate for it, right? They have to make sure that is what is actually going to help the child, right? So, and if they are going to get that accommodation for the child, you know, look at it in a positive way. Don't ridicule the child for it. Don't ridicule anybody else for it, right? So that's
the And the other thing is, you know, one thing I notice as my son is getting older is I don't see in the community, in our community, I would like to see more of this. I see a lot of people staring at our son. I see a lot of people laughing, and you know, it's not that we don't see it, we just choose not to focus on it. But our children notice it too, and they know they are different as they get older. Yeah, I think it's a responsibility that we need to put on neurotypical families to please be a little more inclusive, and also that when our kids go to school, they see a side of your children that you don't see because you're not there. And so please instill kindness, model it as parents, invite people over to your house. And I would really like to say this, as much as in our community we talk a lot about positivity, please don't impose on families like ours a need to always be smiling, because it's not going to be genuine. You know, give us a safe space to say we are struggling. Be kind to us when we are not always grinning in your face. We can't always pull that off. And one thing that I know, this is not, it's not, you know, it's maybe a little controversial to say, but we sometimes only hear from other families when their children are looking for charity projects for their college applications. But genuinely be a friend to them. Go over to your autistic neighbor's house.
It's true, actually.
Yeah, go over to your autistic neighbor's house and say, hey, let me play some basketball with you. When there are no volunteer hours to be added up, are you still going to be my child's friend? I think those things are what count.
Really?
Yes, and I think that in our community we do a lot of things like fashion shows, and we need fewer of those.
Yeah, of course, there's the beauty pageant is
Well,
all
that-
over this.
well,
days.
so I know Radha's giving a list of the community, but let's
Yes.
actually,
Yeah.
it's not always like that. So I don't want the
No,
viewers
I
to
know.
listen and say,
I know. I'm not
Yeah,
I'm
so
just saying
but I think
that
it's more of what we should be aware of, right? So
being aware
we-
that they always need a friend, and I'm not trying to assign any blame. I'm just saying that most of the time our kids really don't have friends, and
Right.
we
So
could-
just
would
30
appreciate
seconds
that.
to
Yeah.
what she said, right? So there is a program in the school where my daughter is in kindergarten. They pull the kids from 4th and 5th grade to sort of play with the kids so that they develop the social skills. Now, my daughter, it's easier to play with the older kid because older kid is bit understanding to the needs of a younger kid. So my daughter started pulling the hands of that kid and sort of started a play which was going really well. So we asked that can we increase that time from once a month to twice a month maybe. Then the teacher said we are all up for it, but the parents don't allow their kids to come out of the class and play with the kids which needs help. Now that is something neurotypical parents can sort of understand our side of. So it's just 20 minutes in a month and a break time, right? So
I think to put it all together in this sense, I don't want our viewers to get, there are issues here, and we have to embrace, right? We have to embrace everybody, each and every one. Just because the child carries a diagnosis, do not alienate them, right? And what Radha also said was, we don't want to give pity. There's a word empathy, right?
Empathy.
As opposed to sympathy, right? So how to interact, how to make somebody feel as regular, normal, whatever you want to call it, as possible, right? So seeing beyond the diagnosis, I think, is what is key here.
And also, even things like there are so many South Asian businesses in this area. I think, so as we were talking about, as our children get older, a lot of autistic people are capable of having jobs. So I would like to see South Asian employers start looking at things like, can I create a jobs program for autistic adults in my company? And how do I get connected to people who can train me to do that? Those kind of things will make the biggest difference, is that you are a safe space for an autistic person to apply for a job, that you would create an environment where they can be different and still be employed, and not just farm that out to mainstream America when they're grown up, Let's be the change. Let's make it happen in our community.
These are real issues, right? We're a young community here, right, in the US. As we start to age, we have to deal with all of these challenges, right? So who's going to take care of our kids? Where are they going to go if, once we are gone? We need to have that in place. We have to think about the future, right?
Part of that is also things like funding for housing. So I know as immigrants we tend to vote a lot on things like, oh, my property taxes are too high. But we have to also think about what happens when our kids need to go and live somewhere. We need to not pull the rug out from under them just because their parents may have passed away, Where are they going to live if there's no money? And so, I can go on about this forever.
So what I think I also want our viewers to know is that there are many different insurance options out there. There are many different state-funded supports out there. Disability care, charity care, so on and so forth, right? That can help financially, but each case is different. So we need to be well informed of what it is.
Let's just make the change. Let's just have the change, and we will dedicate this whole month forth this beautiful reason to come together. And for tonight, I think, Dr. Mehrotra, we have to wind it up.
Of course.
And we will be back next Wednesday again from 7:30. And I mean, still be there, support us as we are talking about autism. And I hope everyone, all of you, have a great night.
And thank you very much for listening.